And we are live. Welcome to another episode on Oak and Rock Fatherhood. It is Wednesday evening, which means we are rocking live. I am coming at you, Zachary Small, the host of this thing, co-host Anthony Migliorino. Anthony, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing excellent, bro. How's it going? Wednesday night. I'm excited to be here. Excited to
I
be
love these, man. There's something about it
talking
going
with
live.
Tim.
Let's talk with Tim. Well, speaking of which, our special guest, Tim Hicks, repeat guest, multiple podcasts, several live sessions with this man. Solid gentleman, solid father. Very happy to have you on. Tim, welcome to the show.
Honored to be here, gentlemen. Thank you. It's great to be on live and knock it out Wednesday night. So I'm looking forward to it.
These are the best sessions, man, especially when the questions come in through the chat. So obviously, if you have a question, man, woman, there's nothing too taboo. Throw it out there. We'll get it addressed. If not, we're just going to start rolling. Before we dive into today's topic and start talking fatherhood, Tim, Anthony and I, we've covered ad nauseum what we're doing this year, where we're going with this. But with you being on, how was your 2021 and what are your plans for the family and specifically as a father for 2022?
2021 was a great year for me. I think I always like to tell this story about how I got COVID in August, and it was one of my goals in 2021 was to really solidify my fatherhood a little bit more. And I'm a father of single father of two young ladies, and my oldest is 14 and my youngest is 12. And so I've been really focusing on that for 2021. We got COVID in August, and I really started to buckle down because I noticed there was a lot of friction in the house after COVID because we were constantly in there and constantly at each other because we were quarantined together. And so I sat there and I was like, yeah, I need to figure this out. I need to be a better father. I need to be a better influence to people. So to my kids, especially. So I basically focused on just connecting with my kids more and working with the guys in the Fatherhood Zoom, Anthony in FOE, and just circling the square a little bit and getting myself right as in terms of a father. And just, I would get frustrated a lot with my kids. And then I learned to be patient and I learned to connect and I learned to listen to them. And that was one of the hardest things for me to do. And going into 2022, I've really ramped up my efforts with them and to the point where I'm extremely happy with where I'm at, but I also want to do more. And what I want to do more with is I want to, expand my connection to them, work with more, do some more activities with them, guide them through. My daughter, oldest, is in high school right now. So that's a huge challenge. She's a freshman this year. She just got done with her first semester and she's really struggling. She struggled in the first semester, but she's starting to come into her own the second semester. And then of course my youngest is in sixth grade. So she is, taking on those challenges of middle school. So I'm just trying to give them more of a support system and give them more of a, somebody who's got their back. And I knew that I'd done it really well, in 2022 because I told myself I was really going to work on some personal goals, and those are intertwined with my family goals. So I'm getting fit, I'm working on my house, I'm working on solidifying my life, and the girls are a huge part of that. So I'm definitely looking into 2022 as being more focused, more supportive, and more connecting with them.
No, it's beautiful. I mean, when you think about how your personal goals align with the family, it couldn't be any more prominent. The importance of when you develop yourself, you do develop the family. When you work on improving you, it is an example for them to follow. And what an incredible gift it is for you to continue to push, but have them be a part of that as well. It's the goal of every family man that they say, but you're living it. And that's one of the things that we love to see is the embodiment of the value and not just espousing it out in public.
Yeah,
Right.
man. Listen,
Yeah.
I saw Tim every week, right? Every week I saw him putting in the work, getting in the reps, sharing what he's learning, how things are improving, how things are getting better. And that's the greatness or the beauty behind this, right? As fathers, we can share our stories, we can share our struggles, we can share our wins. But ultimately, as we get better, our family gets better, our kids get better. And, the key thing Tim said was that connection, right? Creating connection with your kids, learning to be patient and not take things personally, not get upset or frustrated because your kid's going through a hard time. but being capable and strong enough to say, hey, I'm the dad. I'm here to help. Let's find solutions. And I've seen this man live it. And it was cool to see, man. It really was to see him progress, and like light bulbs were going off every week. And he was like, yo, I did this. I got this. I figured this out. So it was cool to see, Tim.
Yeah.
Well, it's a testament too. I mean, think about it. When you normalize the discussion on fatherhood, when you normalize actually having these talks, and another man can say, hey, dude, have you ever thought about this as a dad? You know, oftentimes people put their walls up when it comes to critiquing their fatherhood. And yet we've normalized it. And, you know, Tim and we've cheered each other on as much as we butted heads on just growing. And I say that in the best of lights is you can be honest with the man and they can take it and they can push back on you. And so Tim's challenged me. I've challenged him. I've watched everybody in that entire group have confrontational moments over what's the best way to parent. And what a great discussion to have. What a great way where you want to sharpen your edges. Hey, why do you think you're the best? And let me tell you why I think I'm the best. And then let's come to the middle ground, you know, because when these men come at it from a respectful position, everybody wins. There's no fist being, not yet at least. Anthony might get something going in the future, but maybe we'll get a boxing ring.
You're saying that we can solve conflicts and confrontation peacefully, respectfully as men. And why are we not doing this with our children every day, right? Why is this not the set way on how we interact with our kids? If we can do it with each other, we sure as hell need to give that same courtesy and respect to our kids.
And that does go to the point of removing the taboo. Think about it. When you stop thinking that you are a weak man if you talk about fatherhood, you're a weak man if you talk about the emotions of your children or how you feel about them, you know, going both ways. When you get rid of that little self-imposed, you know, shackles that are on you as to you're not allowed to talk about this thing, you will flourish. You know, and it's interesting because you run peacefulfathers.com, I run thefamilyalpha.com, and we've got Uncharted Father right there. So Tim, you know, we've shared our story. What led you to Uncharted Father?
Well, it's a very interesting story. And it started in 2000 and basically started in about 2016 when I got divorced. And I wanted to give men a perspective on what I was going through in my life. And so I proceeded to start basically what was called a father's journey. And I was showing people kind of the world that I was living in, world that I was fighting against in divorce and fatherhood and dating and just everything a single dad kind of goes through. And then it's probably been about 2 years ago now that I decided to go Uncharted Father, because I showed my journey but I was going into some pretty uncharted territory. And this uncharted territory was my kids were getting older. They were getting into their teenage years. And so while I thought I had mastered being a father, I absolutely had no idea what I was doing. And I thought I was doing all the right things, and I was butting heads with them consistently. And so I had to humble myself a little bit, and I had to say I wasn't being a good dad. And it kind of came to a head with my kids, and I kept constantly kind of butting heads with them and fighting with them. And I said, there has to be a better way. And so then
what were those signs, Tim? What were the signs where you said that, well, I wasn't being the best dad or as good of a dad as I could be? What were the indicators there?
There was a lot of pushback from my kids on a lot of things. They would not come to me for things. They did not trust me. And it hurt because your kids depend on you as their dad. And one of the things that really bothered me was the fact that they couldn't come to me for little things, right? I had to be the strength for them, and I wasn't. And I would constantly be in almost like a fight or flight situation with them over homework, over going places, over chores, over a lot of different things. And it was constantly just stress and pressure. And, you know, then it was, of course, well, I'm the parent, so you do what I say. And of course that went over like a lead balloon. So at this point, I was struggling, and I was trying to find some answers. And so that's when it just came to me that I came to FOE and came to Anthony, and I accepted the fact that I had some limitations when it came to being a dad, and I needed to be better. And so nothing wrong with reaching out for help and trying to get myself righted, because I have 2 children, and I want to have more someday, and I want to be a good dad. And so the best way to be a good dad is to learn from other good dads. And so I swallowed my pride and I dove into the fatherhood Zooms, and I did the work on the books, and I'm still learning. Right. I'm not there. I'm not ready to do a touchdown dance, but I've seen a huge improvement just in terms of, instead of, and I think one of the big things that really helped me was, instead of saying, do this, whenever they asked me a question or whenever I needed them to do something, I respond more with, I have such a better response now. And it's a better thing when I say, how can I help? What can I do to help you? Cause I'm their, I'm their support. So I've got to act that way. And I wasn't acting like their support.
Yeah, listen, Tim, this is going to sound like magic, right? Or maybe witchcraft, but you teach a child how to treat you by how you treat them. It's as simple as that. And it's amazing that we don't get that as men, right? And
This is
like
cutting
you
edge
said,
stuff.
this is what I'm here for.
No, that's cool, man. When you hear it too, Tim, you straight up said, at the time they didn't trust you. Do you know how hard it is for a father to say that? Like, even now, you've repaired that relationship. I've seen it bloom. You've shared with us, some of the milestones and everything, which is amazing. And we're like, yeah, I get it. But still, when you say it, you can even hear it in the tone of your voice. Like, that sucks. And as parents, all of us look back on moments where we weren't at our best. We're like, man, that sucks. But it's just fuel. It's just a reminder. It's just a marker. Like, that's why I'm doing this work. That's why I'm putting it out there. And then for you to come on the show and, like I said, to share that again, and I can't stress this enough, but it highlights the fact that we need to normalize this discussion. We need to make it normal for fathers to say, hey, I'm having an issue here. I don't know if I'm being the best dad I could be. Like, can we talk about this, guys? And then get it going, get it rolling. And all of a sudden you'll find out a lot of other dads are having the same issue and they don't know how to fix it because their parents never spoke to them about it. And there are no other men to speak to about fatherhood because it's an off limits subject. So here we are stripping that taboo away. I mean, that's actually why the banner that's up right now, nothing is off limits. Ask the questions if you've got them. There's nothing we won't address because too many families have been suffering for too long under this guise of, we don't talk about fatherhood. We don't talk about parenting. Well, yes, we do, because we want to improve, because the future of our nation and the world is worth it. It's worth getting over that uncomfortable feeling of addressing yourself and seeing maybe I'm a little inadequate in these areas.
Go
ahead, Tim. What were you going to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. 100%. Like I said, I didn't realize how important it was until it started to work, right? Until my approach started to work. And one of the things I think that really that helped me as a father, and one of the things, like I said, there was one that was the question of, how can I help? And then there was also the fact that I stopped whatever it was I was doing, looked them in the eye, and listened. And that, I think, along with the question, made them realize that Dad's here. He's not off somewhere else. He's not got other important things on his mind. He's here. He is focused with me. So we're going to tackle this together, whatever it is. And so I've noticed as I've been able to do that more, I've noticed that my kids have come to me with more, and they have talked to me about more, and they're excited to share things because they know Dad's listening and they know Dad's engaged. And it doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it really made a difference. And I'm seeing it more and more now. So it's like, now I know I can read my kids, they can read me, and we trust each other. And it can only get better from here. So.
Well, that's what it's about, Tim, right? You're building trust. And without trust, you can't really have a relationship, at least anything that has any real intimacy, right? You can have relationships where I'm the dad and you do as I say, but your kid is never going to be who they truly are, right? They're never going to be, hey, I really trust dad. I know I can go and talk to him. They're going to say, no, what can I hide from him? Right. Or not, even worse, they're going to say, my dad doesn't like me. He hates me. He thinks I'm a bad person. He, whatever may be going on in a teenager's head, this is how they think. And, I would say a reason why this is so hard for a lot of men is because we never received that during our childhood, right? We never had a father who intently listened to us, who said, hey, listen, I care about you. Let's talk, right? We always got that. I'm the dad, you do as I say. So these are generational wounds that we're healing. And I think as men, if we can, going back to what we teach our kids, you have to be able to empathize with your kids so they can grow and empathize with you. And that's a relationship, right? Where two people actually care about what the other one does, what they're going through, how can we help, right? That, to me, that's real. And it's something, like Zac said, that we avoid or we shy away from, because it's like a complete foreign thing to us. Once you start to like really build a relationship with your kid, it's scary, man. Right? You have a little kid now that you have to be, no, but you have to have integrity. You have to have maturity, because you just earned that child's trust and you can't break that. So it's a tough spot to be in, man. I get it. But again, you're doing great work.
Mhm.
To that point, man, when you think about it too, the charade that's maintained, I'm a strong father, I'm the leader of this family. You're not in any sense hitting those benchmarks. In no way are you hitting the metric of what a leader should hit. You're not doing anything. Your family's divided. You're not going where you want to be. You look sad. You're overweight. You're broken down. You have no motivation. Your kids don't want to be with you. Your spouse can't tolerate you if she even exists. Yet you're the man and the leader of that house? Absolutely not. It's a fake. You're like a piñata. I whack you and you're going to spill your guts out of just the soft candy on the inside. It's ridiculous to see what these men are saying, because the cognitive dissonance is wild. But really, it's based on fear. You're afraid to admit that you're not in charge, because then what are you? You're just lost in the sauce. Are you following? Are you weak? Are you timid? All these things that men don't want to be. If they yell loud enough and they assert themselves, they're domineering enough. Well, I'm in charge of these kids. I'm going to keep them in line. I'm going to show them you're in my roof. You're in charge of. You're under my tutelage. You do what I say. I'm in charge. You have to flex fear from them. You've got to make them scared of you, because you're scared of what happens when that fear is taken away and they challenge you man to man. They call you to the carpet as to who you truly are. And we actually have a video, and we're going to address it. It's one of those, I guess, spoof videos, but I think it highlights a reality many are living in. And so I'm going to play that real quick. We'll go through and then we're going to break it down again. The argument is not, is this real? Is this not real? This is happening in homes, and the message the father shares, is definitely real. So I'm going to drop that on there. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to let it roll for a second.
Is it right? You can't do this to your child. Well, yes, I can. You're not listening. You're in my house.
So obviously we've got this kid yelling at his dad. The dad's screwing about, the Xbox and whatnot, holding it over the pool, threatening the kid's life. I'm trying to get audio, but I can't get it to play. I don't feel like messing around with it.
I made a commitment to that.
Basically, screaming at the kid.
No, I can hear it.
Shit.
Okay, so I couldn't.
Holy shit.
So the dude just tosses it into the freaking pool. And the kid flips out. He's jumping in there. How can you do this to me? You're my father. It's wild.
Oh my god.
And how many times, look at this kid diving in there to save his video game. And people are like, oh, it's not real. They do this to make money and, go viral and do things like that. Okay. Now let's remove this one situation and let's look at all those other fathers. Let's look at all the parents who are out there saying, oh, you have this laptop, these video games, this phone, you want to do all these things. In my house, absolutely not. In my house, you follow my rules. You're allowed to use it on my terms. You're allowed to exist within my window that I allow you to exist with all these things. And if you use that video game too much, you're on that phone too much, I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to throw it in the pool. I'm going to show you. And they're going to take it and they're going to look at that as if breaking that electronic is going to fix the issue that's there. And both the child, the parent, and everybody watching online knows that's absolute bullshit, because the problem isn't the item. The problem isn't that device. The problem is the fractured relationship in that home. And so I was wondering what your guys' thoughts were on the videos that are out there like that, where the parent is shaming the kid publicly, where they're taking their video games and snapping them in half, or things like that, where they're taking the devices and they're just smashing them or shooting them. Anthony and I have a video coming out where we're going to break down the dude who literally shoots the daughter's laptop because she said that she was basically sick of all the chores she had to do. And instead of, she probably wasn't feeling heard in the home. So she vented online. The dad found it and he showed exactly why she said what she said. He confirmed her accusations, which is amazing. But I was wondering your thoughts on that. Do you guys think it's funny? Do you think that that's something that maybe we're blowing it out of proportion and it doesn't happen as much? Or do you think that parents truly are just rolling in and taking these kids' games and TVs and smashing them to show them a lesson?
I'll let Tim go first.
I think it's happening. I can tell you that there's one of the things that my kids are on video games, not as much as they used to be because I'm engaged with them now a little bit more, and they've found some time. But I will tell you that there are places out there, there are kids out there and parents out there that are doing this because the parents blame the thing instead of blaming what they're doing, because what essentially that thing has done, whether it be an Xbox or a laptop or a iPad, something that they're doing, what that thing has done is that has replaced them as a parent, right? That item, that device is taking their kids' attention, and it is their parents and every other person in their life is secondary to that piece of equipment. And so to me, that right there just shows that parents are powerless because they aren't taking, it seems like they have to just put down they feel like they have to put down the iron fist. And when the harder you come down on a kid, the worse it's going to be. Your relationship's going to be when you damage that relationship by doing something like this, especially publicly, right? You have absolutely, your trust is already eroded, but now you've just absolutely just demolished it. And it's very hard to come back from that. And so, coming up with this book that we've been reading with No Drama Discipline, which is a great book. They basically said the minute that you damage a relationship with your child, you have to immediately connect and try to fix it and try to repair it. And that type of stuff is extremely hard to repair. It could take years to get over something like that because the kid is publicly shamed, because basically the parent is saying, hey, I can't parent you, so let's take it to the public square and let's see if humiliation will work. And obviously it doesn't.
Yeah,
that's very well said.
Why would you want to humiliate your kid in the first place? Like, why? How is that your go-to to teach a lesson? I would say, look at the world we live in, right? If you don't take this specific medicine, you can't go and do this. If you don't wear this mask on your face, you can't fly here. We see this showing up in society everywhere now. And it's not just current times, right? This has been going on forever. But one thing I've learned as a father in this last decade, maybe even longer, is that I am not going to abuse my power over my kids, right? Just because I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I provide food for them, I provide shelter, I'm not going to abuse that to make them do what I want them to do, right? These are my kids. They didn't ask to say, hey, Dad, can you have us? I brought them into the world. It's my responsibility to take the time, to have the patience, and to have the courage to guide them, to show them how to be a good person. Not use the things, that power that I have over them to control what they do, right? That's the easy way. And unfortunately, that's the route that most fathers take, right? We talk about being strong men. We have to get off the easy path of raising our children, right? We have to do hard things. We have to take the time. We have to be committed and dedicated into learning better ways. Like Tim said, we just finished a book by Dan Siegel and Tina Bryson called No Drama Discipline. For me, studying parenting for the last 15 years, that book was mind-opening, right? It opened my eyes to things I never even thought of. And this could be something that every father has the capacity to do, right? That you just have to make the time. You have to say, hey, I'm going to stop tormenting or trying to humiliate my kid. And I'm going to find ways to connect with them. I'm going to find ways to make the words that I speak that they believe me and they trust me and they want to follow me. Right. So when I say, hey, we're going this way, they say, let's go, dad. Right. They're not saying, oh, screw you, I want to go this way. And then I say, well, I'm going to take your phone away. I'm going to take your car away. I'm going to take your Legos away. What, what are we teaching our kids? We're teaching them that people who hold power over them can control them by abusing that power. And then unfortunately, that's going to set them up for a life where that's going to take shape in the future as an adult also.
You know, I think of it the same way, you know, when you look at our discussion on second class citizens and kids are just treated like dirt compared to everybody else. Kids like just get the shitty end of the stick every time. And you look at this and you see it playing out and you're like, well, you would rather take their toy, take whatever it is, their gaming device, and you'd rather go to the masses and gather support from the troops of all these stupid individuals who agree with your stupid approach to wanting to shame your child. They're like, yeah, you can show them, that'll teach them. You would rather do that than sit down and say, hey, where's the disconnect between you and I? I must have missed something, you know, because we're not on the same page, we're not reading from the same book. And instead of privately handling it and connecting as a family, they go public and they do something that they try to assert their authority. But it's like the bully who has to like, come on, guys. Yeah, let's get this guy. Let's jump him. And they've got to gather that support to show, yeah, I'm right. I'm the dad. I'm in charge. I'm powerful. And that's the only time they feel power, when they're stepping in the throat of their children. It's disgusting. It's not healthy. It's not conducive to a lifetime of growth and optimized children. This is how men end up coming to us saying, hey, I have to rebuild myself now. Not, hey, I want to invest everything into raising my kids up because I've locked myself in. I've got to break me down to all the way to my childhood because my father didn't raise me properly or give me the tools I needed or the support I needed. I've got to build me back up, and then I've got to try to reconnect with my child because I damaged that and I was continuing the cycle. How much wasted time are you putting into your child's life? Because that man who's talking to us is somebody's son. And when you look at that, it kind of shifts the dynamic a little bit because it's always men. I look at you two, you guys are both men, but you're also somebody's son. And what a shame it would be for me to have to work with you to fix you when that man could have done it right the first time. And you'd have been light years ahead of that. And then we could talk about future growth and ways to get better instead of, hey, we've got to strip it all the way back down and put it back together just to start going forward again. There's a lot of lost time in that. And, you know, I was on a Twitter space today. It was the Positive Vibe Tribe. With Indra and Nico and the really cool squad. Everybody in there was wicked positive. They're all building things up. And what was really cool is, and I can't think of the name of the book. Anthony, you probably know it. But it's basically about, it's better to build boys than repair men. And the title is something along there. But he was talking about, if we invest in just getting it right with the boys now, we don't have to fix broken men because they'll be squared away from their foundation they were built upon. But when you have dads that are going out there to publicly get support in their smashing of that relationship and the destruction of it, we're breaking our sons and daughters down and then blaming society. It's TV's fault. It's the government's fault. It's the school's fault. No, mom and dad, it's your fault. But that's too jagged of a pill for you to swallow. So you keep pointing your fingers everywhere else and you're never going to heal because you're never going to look inside. And so with that, and talk about looking inside of the steps to start that process, Tim, you know, you and Anthony both referenced no drama discipline. One of the things that Anthony got me on early on, which he can't get me anymore, is the fact that he asked me how many books I had on parenting, and I had none. And I hated it. I like that. It'll forever be one of those things that I bring up just to kind of like shame myself to make sure I keep reading about it. But would you say, or let me ask the direct question. Were you always reading about parenting, or is that when you really started to recalibrate yourself that you decided to take, you know, not just finance and fitness, but you invested in better understanding your role and performance as a father?
Yeah, I've always, I haven't always, I thought I was doing the right things, right? Because you hear it every day from everybody. Yeah, you know, you're doing right. You're, you know, but they don't really see the inner workings of what you're trying to do. So I just assumed I was doing okay because I was doing what my father had done, right? And everybody around me was saying, yeah, you're doing it right. And even though my kids were secretly, you know, really unhappy with me, and I was secretly unhappy with how I was doing it, but you know, you figure it's not broke, or you don't think it's broke, so you should not fix it. But then I see the fraying and I see the cracks. And so I decided to do something about it. and it was everything. I mean, you know, Uncharted Father essentially is taking every aspect of my life and stripping it down and finding out what I could be doing better. Right. That's what we want to do as men. We want every aspect of our life to be great. You know, or at least we're working on it being great. And so to me, this was kind of a backdoor thing. And, you know, you think you're doing okay. And, you know, your fitness is dialed in and, you know, you're trying to lead men and trying to do the right things and, you know, trying to be the patriarch of your family. And then, you know, this base, this foundation is cracking because your kids aren't happy and you haven't looked at it. So I admit it. I was not the best dad I could be, and I needed to learn more. And so that's when I went in and No Drama Discipline, you know, really helped. I mean, it was a very good book, and I'm going to get some more of those books with Bryson and the other guy, but they are. He wrote a book called The Whole Brain Child, which is another a book I want to read as well. I mean, they're just very good, eye-opening stuff. And I think one of the big things that really, and I think that kind of describes this situation that they talk about in the book is lower brain versus upper brain, downstairs brain, as she calls it, or upstairs brain, as they call it. So essentially, when a father reacts that way with a video game or in a manner which you saw in the video, that's a lower downstairs brain reaction, where a downstairs brain essentially is your reactive brain. That is your brain that's basically not thinking, it's just acting. And so when you react with a child, instead of using that upper brain, well, it's essentially just like running into a brick wall, because they're going to come back with you with the same lower brain, downstairs brain that you're coming with them. They're just going to come with it more. And so what we've had to do and what we've had to do and what the book basically taught us about was to step back, give it a second, and let our upstairs brain engage. And then when you engage with your kids through an upstairs brain mindset, and basically it's connecting and redirecting, or, you know, generally just, you know, giving them understanding instead of reacting and getting upset, giving them empathy and understanding, then it not only builds your upstairs brain and rewires it, because your brain is constantly being rewired. And that was something that really opened my mind up too. Your thinking patterns are constantly being changed. Well, your kids are reacting that way too, to the upstairs brain. So it's a really amazing thing, because you're building your upstairs brains together, because their brain's not developed. It won't be fully developed until they're like 26. And so it was like, when you think about it that way, and you think about, you know, these are kids that you have that their brains aren't fully developed yet. You're not going to reason with them like an adult, but you can start the path by not interacting with them through your downstairs brain, through a reactive state.
Yeah, go ahead,
Well
Anthony.
said. No, that's you know, those are nuggets Tim's dropping. And, you know, I was thinking about a lot of the fathers I talked to throughout the last few years, and how many people are so surprised when I say that I don't punish my kids, right? Like, they can't even comprehend it. They don't even understand. They think that my house is literally on fire and burning down every day because I tell them this. And you know, it's just something I think about a lot. And, you know, why would I want to punish my kids? Why would I want to hurt them? You know, these are the people that mean the most to me. Of course, I'm going to take the time to work on how to communicate effectively with them, to work on understanding concepts, what Tim was just saying, right? When things are heated, or when they're not doing something I want them to do, I'm not going to engage them on a lower brain level, right? I'm going to be the mature adult. And I think that's important to recognize, right? As men, when we have issues in the home, right? When our needs aren't met, when I say, I need you to cut the grass, and our kids don't listen, that's not a time to be reactive. It's not a time to have a temper tantrum and get angry and get frustrated and throw threats around, right? It's a time that we have to be calm, we have to be collected, and we have to be the adult. Because if we're not the adult, who the hell is going to teach our kids how to have self-regulation and how to have respect for themselves and self-worth, right? If we're not showing them during these interactions, they're not going to learn it. So unfortunately, like Tim was saying, this is the cycle that we keep seeing it repeated. I think as men, if we can start to take a more of a responsibility, not just for being a dad, but for our actions, right? And not even just our actions, the language we use, how we talk to our kids, right? Are we saying things that are hurtful? Are we being manipulating? Are we manipulating them? Are we trying to do things that they don't want to do, right? Are we trying to make them do things that they don't want to do because it makes us feel good, or because we don't know how to get them to get the task done? So I think we definitely need to keep thinking about what's going on instead of being this oversensitive man who's throwing Xboxes in the pool or shooting their daughter's laptop, right? To me, that's unacceptable. It's not a way that a man should behave ever.
Well, imagine doing that and then expecting respect. You just you just had an adult temper tantrum. You couldn't handle the emotions that came with your kid, playing too many video games. So you literally threw the device into a pool, or you literally pulled out a gun and shot it to prove a point and put it on Facebook because you're a tough guy. Okay, buddy. You know what's tough? Speaking to your kids like the future adults they'll be, and respecting the criticism that comes back to you and being able to handle that. That's something that we have found ourselves bouncing around a few people, Anthony and I, because we don't really get our feelings hurt when people push back. And a lot of people, when the kids come back on them and you can't say that to me. Well, yes, they can. They should be able to say anything to you. If you can't handle that, you're soft. We're trying to build hard dads who can just take it. That's what you say. You want to be the king. Heavy's the head that wears the crown. Bro, it seems like that crown's too heavy for your head because you're crumbling with words that are hurting you. And I want to recognize Philip Capaldi. He says, it sets an example of how to share what you're feeling in a healthy way, how their behavior is impacting you without putting a label on the child. Very well said. And it's one of those things that ties in quite well with what we're saying here. You can have these discussions like adults. As a parent to a child, you can speak to that child on a level that I would speak to the two of you. Correctly, appropriately, with respect. And if you push back and point out areas that I'm failing, I'm not going to flip out and try to defend it with my pitchfork and say, you're wrong. I'll say, oh man, I need to look at myself. Thank you for pointing that out. I didn't see that gap. I didn't see that flaw in my foundation. I'm glad you pointed it out instead of some stranger out there because you're my friend or you're my son, you're my daughter, whatever it is, whoever's pointing it out. Thank you. Cool. I can work with this. Look, my feelings aren't hurt. And that's one of the things I stress to my kids, and we have a lot of talks. And one of the things that I'm always telling them is like, it doesn't matter what it is. You can talk to me about it. And my kids, both of them, have had some weird conversations, man. Some very uncomfortable conversations to where I'm in it. And I'm body language. I'm not showing them that I'm just like on the inside. Like, what are we talking about? But I'm like, I would never have spoken to my dad about these things. Never. And they feel so free to speak to me about them. And it's a sign that something's working, that they're comfortable, that they trust me to handle it. And there's a lot of moments where I catch myself looking at them like the insights they're dropping on me. It's profound. And it's things that as an adult, sometimes we think too much. We get a little too caught up in what we think is right or what's wrong. And a kid's like, well, you said I should do this, but you do that. And you're like, damn, I didn't even realize I was being hypocritical because you have those defense mechanisms in your head to justify what you're doing. And when a kid calls you on it, like I was saying, with Anthony, you can defend it or you can admit it. It's harder to admit, oh, you're right. My bad. I'm going to fix that right now. Good on you. Good job pointing that out. I want you to point that out every time you see it. Don't ever let me slide. Don't let anybody slide. Because when you give in on one, that starts the process. Well, let's just keep letting that fall. Let this fall. And all of a sudden your standards plummet and you allow anybody in your life because, hey, it's just one little thing, right? No, that's not how that works.
Yeah. No, I want to say, Zach, that's an excellent point. And to make the distinction, right, it's not just about your kid telling you what you're doing wrong, like a task or something. It's if your kid has the courage to say, hey, Dad, I don't like how you're talking to me in this moment. Right? Think about how many fathers would lose their mind if that happened. To me, that is such a courageous and brave thing to do, right? It shows that child is assertive, they're strong, and they're confident to tell their dad. And And that's only going to happen if you continually work on the relationship, like Tim said, right? If you build that trust, then your kid, yeah, man, you should love that as a father. Like, yeah, come on, tell me some more.
Think about what we've been saying about the masks and the vaccine, like all those things we were listing. If they can push back on you, their dad,
Yeah,
they're not going to take that from strangers. Hell no.
absolutely. They're not going to take that from an abusive spouse, from an abusive boss, from anybody who's trying to hold power over them, who legitimately should not, right? And that's the kind of the key thing. I will add one important thing, right? We talk about the reaction a lot, right? The kids who react and they're having tantrums, they're screaming. We're getting into screaming and yelling matches. One thing we have to remember is a lot of these times things go unnoticed, right? Our kids, they don't push back, right? They're not in that fight. Their brain is flight, and they're retracting, right? They're shutting down. They're becoming almost absent from the relationship. And to me, that's something we have to be aware of too, right? Your kid gets sad, they get depressed, they get lonely, and they know that they can't go and talk to that father because what's going to happen, right? Oh, quit being a pussy, right? Don't, shut the hell up. I didn't do that. You're overreacting. And now just more is dumped on them. So of course they're going to, be secluded. Of course they're going to isolate themselves from you. So there's all these signs and signals that we have to read, and you will see them if you're willing to do the work, to take the time and to become aware that this is part of the job, right? Raising a kid, being a father, this is part of what we have to do. We have to be super aware of how powerful and how influential we are to the progression and the health of our child's lives. Can't take it for granted.
Tim, I wanted to throw it your way, but first I want to recognize PMAC. Actually, before I even dive into this man is I'm so freaking proud of him, not just for his personal achievements, but for how he's grown with his family. It's incredible to see that squad growing. I mean, he is raising some beasts, and it's incredible to see though, because he elevated himself. And so I've seen his journey, I've seen their journey, and just the whole squad together. It's a beautiful thing. And I choose that word intentionally because it's almost like you talk a lot about the changes that need to occur to improve the world. And when you see it happening in a home, you're like, man, like that's what right looks like. Coming together, working together, elevating each other, challenging each other to be better. I love when my son challenges me. I love when both my kids challenge me. It really does push me, like I got to keep the pedal to the metal. And what's funny is right now, everybody in the house could beat me in a race. And it's the only time, because I'm a pretty fast dude and I can barely walk right now. So they're kind of rubbing that in, that they got to do benchmark. I've got to get back out and start training again. But I mean, it's cool when you have a family dynamic where everybody's winning and working together and raising each other up. So with all of that, not a PMAC. He said, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman is a great book on the separate thinking Tim is talking about. And then he says, respond versus react, which we all know where we stand on that. You do not want emotional reactions. You want healthy, masculine responses to these things that are brought to you, thought out. So shout out to PMAC, man. I can't say any more love that dude's way. He's fantastic. And so is his family. All right, Tim.
Yeah, I think just kind of to put an exclamation point on some of this that we were talking about, kids are little truth tellers, right? They have no reason to really lie. And especially in the heat of the moment, they're going to tell you things that you don't want to hear, but they are the truth. You get upset and they call you out on it, and they tell the truth to you. They are, there was an example in the book of, the I think it was an example that he was one of the father took his kids to dinner, or no, I'm sorry, it was a snack, and they went to get him, and it was him and his teenage son and his little sister and his daughter. And so they were out to like getting a snack, and he asked them if they wanted an apple crepe, and the boy said, yeah, I'll take one. And the girl says, no, I wasn't hungry. So the boy starts eating the apple crepe, and the girl says, can I have a bite? Because I'm kind of hungry now, because it's an apple crepe. It looks really good. And the father's kind of getting annoyed, and the son goes, no, I don't want to share. So the father's kind of getting involved. It seems like he's getting a little agitated. So he's like, can you give her, the sharing is always good. We always say that as fathers, you should share. It's important, share with your sister. And so instead of sharing, like giving her a bite, he cuts like the little smallest microscopic bite that he can, and he gives it to her. Right. And so so everybody's upset. And of course, the father is really annoyed. And he basically starts getting upset with the son. Well, why can't you share with your sister? And blah, blah. And his son keeps challenging his barbs with truths, right? Saying, well, that's a bite. I offered her some. And, it turned into, I like to call it I call it a pissing match, which is kind of what it turns into with your kid when you have a lower brain attack that you fight with your kid. And it was so funny because and finally he realized, and at the end of the story, he said, I can't realize it. Didn't realize it, but everything he was saying about me was true. I just didn't want to hear it. I was taking offense to what my son was saying because he said, you're overreacting. And I gave her a bite, and he did. And, he was trying to find some fallacy with his son's arguments, and there were none. And instead of just accepting that and saying, hey, you're right, this is a crazy situation. We probably just need to do, move on, or, what can we have done better than that the last time? But instead, he decided to just kind of get mad because, it wasn't going his way and his son was correct. And so that right there, I think is the kids, they love you and they're going to tell you the truth, and you have to be man enough to take that truth. And I mean, it hurts your feelings sometimes because they're right. And you have to be able to, swallow your pride and say, yeah, I'm going to do better. I failed. I think a good example was when I was trying to get my daughter to go someplace because I thought she should get out of the house. And instead of specifically asking her, I didn't. I just kind of said, we're doing this because I'm the boss. Right. And my daughter basically just told me, I would have gone, or I would have, considered it had you just told me, had you asked my, if I wanted to do this thing instead of telling me. And so it was, she's right. And so it just kind of, it turned it around on me. And I kind of said, instead of getting mad and going, no, that's not what it is, and you need to go and blah, 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 I just said, you're right. I got to do better. I need to make a plan. So I learned my lesson. And every time we have something that, we want to do as a family, we're getting input from everybody, because it's not a dictatorship. I mean, it is to a certain extent, because we are the adults and we're going to, guide the ship, but kids are going to be a lot more receptive when they have a say in what's going on.
Yeah. What I do in those situations, Tim, that works really well. I stomp my feet and hold my breath until my kids listen.
I shoot the apple pie.
Yeah.
I'll show them.
I'll just eat it all, and then you don't get any. None of you get it. I'll eat it.
That's the craziest thing, man. How hard we make the easiest things. Like in a situation, for real, if I were to break down my life right now, I know exactly how that would happen. If my daughter's like, oh, I don't want anything, my son's like, I do, cool, I get it for him, and she asks for a bite, he'd be like, all right, here you go, here's a bite. If he doesn't want to give her a bite and he's like, no, like you said no, I'm eating it, I'd be like, you said no. Say yes next time. And I would let him eat it. I would not make him share. But knowing him, he is a kind soul. He might give her that small piece, but he would give her a bite. But it's one of those things where we live in, we live in an environment. Our family, we look out for each other. My kids say thank you to my wife every night when she makes dinner. I mean, we're at the point where if she hands them a bottle of water, oh, thank you. They don't take anything without just showing some gratitude because they appreciate it. And my wife, she's in school right now. My kids are asking her. So one thing we did with the kids, tell me 2 things that were great about your day and 1 thing that wasn't awesome. And so basically it's telling me 3 things about your day, 2 that are good, 1 that's bad. They're doing that to her because now she's a student in school. Tell me 2 things about your day. And they're super pumped. When you have an environment like that, it's just so much easier, man. And you just have a good time and you're relaxed and people aren't at each other's throat. And dude, for as high tempo and as like forward leaning as I can be, I really do just like to chill. I just want to do my thing. I want to help families win.
Right.
I just want to kick it. I try, man. I keep trying. All right. What the hell did you say to me? But it's one of those things, dude. Like, you want the home is supposed to be chill. Like, go ahead and fight your battle outside, but in the house, man, you shouldn't be at the kids' throats. They shouldn't be at yours. There's no need for it. Nobody wins in that environment.
Well, and also think about, one of the things I think that Anthony taught me was, and it really, people don't realize it because they're terrified of doing this for some reason. And it was terrifying for me. I can say that, but empower your kids, empower them, see what they do when you give them a say, when you give them options. You'll be very surprised. I think a lot of fathers are terrified because they're like, oh, they're just going to paint the house blue and they're going to run around and destroy the carpets. And, like the worst case scenario you see on all the, you see in media, mainstream media of, you should never empower your children. You might be surprised to see some amazing things. And, I'm consistently surprised by my kids when I empower them and give them that choice with money. They get to spend their money on whatever they want, and they have that option. It's their money. They get to do these things, and just watch what happens when you give your kids freedom and empower them to make decisions. And it's going to blow your mind that they're not savages. This isn't Lord of the Flies. This is civilized society. The kids are going to they're gonna do the right thing. You just don't think they are. So give yourself a question.
Could get a little chaotic.
It could, but just control chaos. Just do that.
Tim, you're talking about your kids surprising you. I'm wondering, from all the books you've read on parenting and the writing you've done, all of that, what would you say your biggest surprise has been from something you took away from somebody else's work and maybe applied to your family?
That's a really good question. I think
I know that's why I threw it to you, and I'm not answering it.
One of the things, one of the books. I can tell you, it's really has been No Drama Discipline, because it just changed. It completely changed the game for me. That's what Anthony had said too, and you don't think about it. And I think that right there, that when you were talking about one of the things that fits, that really catches me when I'm talking to my children, is the fact that they are just as, when you empower them, they are just as, you can trust them to make good decisions, and they do. And then when they don't, you don't get mad at them. You just guide them, and you say, and they kind of experience that, they experience the bad part of it, the bad, part of that decision, like, I'm not going to wash my gym clothes. Well, that's a wonderful decision. I have offered to wash your gym clothes, but if you do not want to wash your gym clothes, then you're going to experience, I'm not going to get upset with you because you didn't, I can remember that when I didn't wash my gym clothes, I was accused of being the smelly kid. So you're going to be the smelly kid. But if that's the decision you're going to make, then you can live with it. But if you don't want to make that decision, or if you want to do another path, I'm here with the laundry detergent and the washer, and I can take good care of you, and I can make sure you smell spring fresh every day at gym. So, and it's stuff like that, but it's giving them that choice. And yeah, they might walk into a little bit of a minefield, but it's controlled chaos. And as a father, that to me, I think was missing a lot is, you don't let them hurt themselves, but you do empower them with decisions and let them feel the consequences a little bit.
What about you, Anthony? From all the reading you've done over the years, what would you say stands out to you as one of the more surprising things from a book, and then you apply it and you see it come back to you from the kids?
Wow.
I'm giving myself as much time to answer the question.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna have an answer right away on that one. That's a heavy question.
I'll throw mine out there. Go ahead. On it. In Unconditional Parenting, he mentions is it Alfie Kohn?
Yep.
He mentioned, okay. He talks about a well-behaved child is a kid who's not making noise, is obedient and just sitting there not being seen or heard. And he said that's what people call a well-behaved child. And when I read that, it almost floored me, because to me it's the happy kid, the walking around like being engaged. To me, that's a good kid. And I hadn't put together how parents view kids as good when they're invisible. And that tripped me out. Like that really threw me for a loop, because how sad is that? You're a good kid if I don't see you, hear you, or even know you exist. That's when you have good kids. And other adults will say that. Oh, your kids were so good. You're like, dude, I haven't seen them. Like, yeah, that's why. Like, no, man. You meet my kids, talk to them. I would love, like, when the two of you meet them, engage them. They're going to be walking around talking to you, wanting to throw a ball with you. Hey, look at my backflip. Like, whatever. They're not going to sit there in the corner and be quiet because that's what we've told them good is. You know, and I make it a point now that when we go places, I'm like, you do not have to sit and just be quiet over there. If you're bored, come get me. We'll go do something. There's no way you're going to sit and just be quiet because you think that's what good is. I will not allow anybody to tell my kids that's what being good is. Invisible. There are enough men right now and women out in the world who are invisible, walking through, who don't think they're worth anything, because that's what good is. I don't want eyes on me. I don't want any attention. I don't want anything, because the only time I get attention is when I'm in trouble. Hell no. I see my kids. I bring them out. I love showing them off. I love bringing them with me to see people. You know, a mutual friend of all of ours, Jeff Putnam. I brought my son down. We got to meet his squad and all of his kids. Those kids were loud. They were engaging. They weren't hiding in the corner away from me. They came down. Oh, hey, you know, Mr. Small, how you doing? Blah, blah. It was fantastic. But that really did, when I first, it was the audiobook actually. So when I first heard it, I was just like, whoa. I had to pause it. I was like, wait a minute. Did I really just hear that right? That was enough time, Anthony. You have an answer.
Yeah,
now.
I'm not. I can't answer your question. I was just going through like 100 parenting books that I've read in the last 2 decades, and it's gonna be tough, man. I can't. There's so many. There's so many lessons that I've learned and things that have stuck out to me. You know, I could rattle off a few. Don't abuse your power over your kids. You know, peaceful parenting. That is obviously a big proponent of why I do what I do, and you know, I got involved into that philosophy by Stefan Molyneux years ago.
That actually might seem like a political answer, you know, like the Trump card, peaceful parenting. But I honestly didn't know it was a thing until you told me. So that might not be as simple as it sounds, because I had no clue there was a title for this, a community for this, a segment of parenting, you know, for this. So that was eye-opening for me.
Yeah, I mean, if you break it down to that, then you come up with the non-aggression principle. So this is, you know, you're not going to enact violence on anybody else that is not aggressing towards you, right? And
I'm all
obviously, no, but obviously opposite of self-defense, right? I shouldn't have to throw that in there all the time, but people don't understand the concept. If somebody's aggressing towards you, you can defend yourself, right? You can be violent against them. But the premise is that we want to create relationships with people that don't inflict violence on us, that aren't trying to manipulate us, that aren't trying to control us. We want to have relationships that are built on truth and honesty and connection, right? Like we always say. So the non-aggression principle is definitely a big part of why I do what I do, how I parent, how I've raised my kids, you know, just about their entire life. But, you know, there's a lot of books I've read on psychology. Alice Miller has a great book called The Drama of the Gifted Child. And, you know, there's so many different elements to raising kids and what we do and how we go about it and how we treat them. And there's so much that we miss, unfortunately, right? There's so much that just gets glazed over, because what it comes down to is, if we as men, if we are not capable of taking care of ourselves, if we are not strong enough, if we're not doing things that are good for us, we are not going to be able to take care of our kids, but we're not going to be able to handle the hard times, to handle their tantrums. We're going to be emotionally drained, right? We're not going to have the energy. And I think that's when those levels are constantly depleted. That's when you start seeing the violence happen. That's when you start seeing people advocating or condoning spanking and hitting kids just to get them to listen. Right. So it's a complete breakdown of masculine values. That's how I see it, because real men would never abuse that power on a kid. They would find solutions. They would learn how to be a good leader. So that's my 2 cents.
Oh, that was a dime, man. That was a good 10. All right, Tim, we've hit the hour. For people that are looking to work with you, what's the best way they can find you? And do you have any parting words for the good people?
Yeah, they can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Uncharted Father, and unchartedfather.com is my blog. I would just say the thing that I would do to really connect with your kids, really start to break it down to just listening to your kids, empowering your kids, and showing them that you are on their team. Because the one thing a kid does not need is he does not need to feel like he's alone, and he doesn't have people cheering him on and people there for him. And I'll leave with one of the best quotes I've heard from the book I was reading, of course, which is No Drama Discipline. It is your kids. I just lost what I was going to say. I just
That's
anyway,
how good it was.
there you go. Yeah,
The best quote I've never heard.
Yeah, no, you're it was basically saying that your kids, you should always try to connect with your kids. That is the first thing you do, and to always try to build the upper part of their brain with yours as well, and show them that you are their trusted caretaker, their teammate, their support system. They can come to you for anything.
That's very well said, man. I appreciate your time for coming on. Anthony, any closing words?
Yo,
Wrap up this Wednesday evening session.
yeah, man. We talk a lot about raising healthy kids, raising our children to be successful. And I think a big part of that, right, is our kids mirror us. So we want to make sure that we're showing them the best that we have. We want to make sure that if we see things in our kids we don't like, we first look at ourselves instead of attacking them. And we're going to leave it on a positive note, right? Somewhat of a positive note. Since my car accident, my shoulder surgery, all my son is talking about is how he can bench press more than me now. I just told him about your surgery, and he's like, dude, tell Zach I can deadlift more than him now.
No.
This is how this kid thinks.
The title.
I just thought it was funny, man. He's seeing a little advantage that he could take because we're a little beaten up, and he's like, I got you. I'm gonna pass you guys.
Dude, he's gonna have to write this down in his calendar. He has this month, and that's it. After that, I'm coming for him. That's fantastic, though. But that's the kind of relationship that you want to have with your kids. I'd much rather that than having to throw an Xbox into a pool.
Yeah.
All right, for everybody that tuned in, thank you again. If I had to leave a parting words, it would be this. Tim came on. He let us inside, between the ears to hear what's going on with his life, his family, his mindset on fatherhood. There is nothing that should stop you from sitting in that seat. If you are not a father who could sit in this seat and defend, or not even defend, but explain your rationale as to why you're parenting the way you parent, maybe it's time you start thinking about that. Maybe you start asking the questions, why are you doing the things you're doing? Tim came on and he broke it down. Every question asked his way. Here's the logic behind why I'm doing this. Here's my aim. Here's the vision I have. If you don't know why you're doing what you're doing and you're just doing it because that's how you were raised, you are wrong. Because you were raised in whatever year, but that year isn't this year. The vision has to change. We're in a new world. We're heading to a new direction. You should be improving upon things. That's what men do. We build, we grow, we advance. We build those around us up to higher heights. If you only want your kids to reach your heights, you're a failure. And you're failing your children. And it's unacceptable. Do better. Be intentional with your fatherhood practices. And if you don't know where to start, reach out. You can drop a comment below. Make sure you like and subscribed. All of our DMs are open. All of the links to our social media is open. The only excuse you have to give is that you're too lazy to reach out or you're too scared. I'll leave you with that. It's been a great session, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Fathers, stay present.